Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem, Bruchim Abam. We're continuing in Berura Daf Hashavua. We're learning Siman Kuf Chaf Beis. We're toward the end of Sif Aleph. The Mechaber said that if you want to be mafsik and answer Kaddish or Kedusha between Shemone Esrei and Yul Ratzain, you do not, because Yul Ratzain is part of Tefillah, but between Yul Ratzain and other Tachnunim, you can. So you can't even be mafsik for Kaddish and Kedusha until you say Yul Ratzain. However, the Ramah says that's in a place where they say Yul Ratzain right after the Tefillah, but if they usually say Tachnunim before Yul Ratzain, so if you could be mafsik for Tachnunim, you could be mafsik for Kaddish and Kedusha. So in other words, even though the Mechaber says you cannot be mafsik before Yul Ratzain, that's if they always say Yul Ratzain right after. But if they say Tachnunim before, then you could be mafsik for Kaddish and Kedusha. And in these places, in our locations, we are mafsik with Elai Kainitzar before Yul Ratzain, and therefore you could be mafsik even for Kedusha and Kaddish and for Baruch Hu, even if you don't say Yul Ratzain. However, the Mechaber continues, Umiyu, Haragel Loimer Tachnunim Achat Tfilah, say one who is accustomed to saying Tachnunim after its Tfilah, Im Hischel HaShliach Tzibur L'Sader Tfilasai, if the Shliach Tzibur began to be Mesader its Tfilah, V'yigia L'Kadosh or L'Kedusha, and he reached Kadosh or Kedusha, Mekatzer V'Oila, he should abbreviate his Tfilah. V'im Loi Kitzer, if he did not, Yachal Hafsik, he could interrupt. Kedarch Shemavsik B'Vracha Shel Kriya Shema Afil B'Emtza, just like you're allowed to be mavsik in the Berchos Kriya Shema in the middle. So in other words, if you usually say Tachanunim, hurry up your Shemone Esrei so that you could say the full Kedusha. But if you don't, you could still be mafsik. Now, just to speak out, the Berura had a kasha yesterday where when the Mechaber said that after Yul Ratzain everything goes, so the Berura was bothered. Everything goes is, you can even answer Amen to a regular bracha. But the Mechaber just says that the dinim are like being mafsik beberchas krishma. And presumably the Mechaber here at the end of the Siv is talking about where you said Yul Ratzain. So the Berura said the end of the Mechaber is talking about someone who's rugil to say Tachnunim. See, if you're rugil to say Tachnunim, they become keva, and it's part of Shemone Esrei. So bottom line is that for us, I think we always say Elai Kainitzar. If you're going to say even if you say Yul Ratzain, you can't answer Amen. You know that? In Elai Kainitzar, even if you said Yul Ratzain, you cannot answer Amen. You can only answer the big answers. You can answer Kedusha and Amen to Hakel HaKadosh, even though you've said Yul Ratzain. Many people think once you say Yul Ratzain, it's free territory. You could answer whatever you want. You could answer Mish Gamacha Kaitav Hu Gamacha Kaitav Sela. No. Pal, you're still middle Shemone Esrei. You say Elai Kainitzar every day, you're still tied down to Shemone Esrei. The only allowance we make is for is that better? The allowance we make is for the Kadosh for Kedusha and Amen Yehishmei Rabbah. Okay, so let's see Siv Katan Hey in the Berura. Umihu. See, here he spells this out. Gamze Mari HaMechaber Kishvar Amar Yul Ratzain. We're talking here when the Mechaber said that you should speed up your Shemone Esrei. Don't think, okay, I said Yul Ratzain, so I'll answer Amen Yehishmei Rabbah, I'll answer Kadosh, 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 and then I'll go back to my Tachnunim. No. Even though you've already said Yul Ratzain, you should still expedite the Shemone Esrei to be able to be finished the Shemone Esrei to answer Kedusha. Because if you didn't say Yul Ratzain, the Mechaber would not be Mekel that you could answer Kedusha. Because he holds you're now to be Mafsik before Yul Ratzain. V'hai umihu, this umihu asoif devarav de mekatzer oila. He's going on his the end of his words, meaning that even though he said in the beginning that between Yul Ratzain and other tachnunim you're allowed to interrupt, so you'll say, okay, great, I will say Yul Ratzain, I'll say Kadosh, 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 I'll say Baruch Kavod, and then I'll continue on my tachnunim. I have a lot of tachnunim to make. My baseball team, my football team, my hockey team, my basketball team, my college football team, and all the important things that I'm a spalo for. So maybe you could do that. Pal, no. Put away your laundry list of things that you daven for, all the chaylim, all the shidduchim, and finish Shemone Esrei and answer Kedusha when you're done. It's not lichatchila to rely on Yul Ratzain answering Kedusha back to Tachnunim. Finish your Shemone Esrei, say your Kedusha, and after davening, take out all your laundry list. By the way, you need to update those papers. Those papers are so old already. Okay, half those people are either married or in the Olam HaEmes, so you need to update the list. But don't elongate the Shemone Esrei at the expense of Kaddish Ukedusha. Okay, it's better to abbreviate and take the 3 steps back. I said Yul Ratzain. The Afal Pi Shamar Yul Ratzain. Mikamagam Kozman Shloi Pasa. If I didn't take 3 steps back, Heve Ka'omed Lefnei HaMelech. It's like standing before the king. You're still tied down. That's why we learned earlier, the Dershu brings, that it's usher to pass by or to sit opposite someone who finished Shemone Esrei and didn't take 3 steps back. That's why you're now to spit in Mil Shemone Esrei even if you finished and you didn't take the 3 steps back. We said if you forgot Yalav Yavai, Madvarim Yafim B'itay, tonight's Rosh Chodesh. If you forgot Yalav Yavai in Shemone Esrei, the Shulchan Aruch says if you finished, you go back to the beginning of Tefillah. The Shar Tzion says if you normally say Yul Ratzain a second time, it's like you didn't finish, and therefore you could go back to Ritzei. You hear this? Very interesting halacha. So don't forget Yalav Yavai. Marav is very hard. Yalav Yavai, Marav is very difficult. If you forget, anyway, you don't go back at Marav. Yeah, but let's say in Shachris, if you normally say 2 Yul Ratzains and you remembered after the first, before the second, you don't have to go back to the beginning of Shemone Esrei because you're still considered in Shemone Esrei. Okay.
This whole Siman is discussing the first Yul Ratzain. Is that added later? Is that part of davening or not? Like if you say it or not, it's in the Siddur. The Siman is assuming it's there. It's not there.
Well, the Ramah introduced that this din that you're not allowed to be mafsik between Shemone Esrei and Yul Ratzain, right? The Mechaber started off. If you want to answer Kaddish and Kedusha, you can't, because Yul Ratzain is part of the Tefillah. The Ramah is telling us that no, the Ramah does not introduce the second Yul Ratzain. So where does the second Yul Ratzain come from?
The first one, I assume.
I'm sorry, the first one?
Right. When he says Loimer Yul Ratzain miyad achar tefillah, he's referring to that one?
No. Where? Which one? What?
No, right at the beginning of the Ramah, when he says
that means no. That the Ramah is still in the world that there's only one Yul Ratzain. The Mechaber.
There's no Alei Kain Tzar in that world.
Yeah, right. That's in the world of before Alei Kain Tzar. Right. So in other words, if you read the early noiseke. In other words, you learn the Mechaber Ramah, you learn a Gemara Mechaber Ramah, you never encounter a second Yul Ratzon. Either they say Yul Ratzon is for sure is the last part of davening. Yul Ratzon is very important tefillah. It has 10 words and 10 yuds, and it has a lot of power to it. But we never encountered, you won't encounter 2 Yul Ratzons. What the first Yul...
Source of the second Yul Ratzon.
What's the
first source for the second Yul Ratzon?
Or you mean like the first one? You mean the one that we add before Elokai Nitzar? Which one?
You're saying some sort of historical thing that,
yes.
At one point,
yes.
2 Yul Ratzon. So when did the second Yul Ratzon come into play? In the 1700s, 1800s? Who introduced it?
I don't know. I can't tell you the history of it. However, if I'm not mistaken, the Gra does not subscribe to the saying the first Yul Ratzon. However, the Achroinim do. In other words, what the first Yul Ratzon is it's a trick. It's a trick to be able to answer Kaddish and Kedusha. In other words, Ramah said that the din you're not allowed to answer Kaddish and Kedusha. One second. Right, the Mechaber said, Bein Yul Ratzon l'shar tachnunim shaper dami. Second. I mean, the Ramah says the din that you're not allowed to say any tachnunim before you say Yul Ratzon is in a place where all they said was Yul Ratzon. But in a place that they say Elokai Nitzar, you could be mafsik even for Kaddish and Kedusha. Okay, that's the Chiddush of the Ramah. Listen carefully. The Mechaber said before you say Yul Ratzon, you can't be mafsik for anything, even for Kaddish and Kedusha. That's how we hold. Until you say Yul Ratzon, you can't be mafsik for anything. Comes the Ramah, and the Ramah says, well, if any way you say Elokai Nitzar, so you're mafsik for those tachnunim, you can be mafsik for dvarim shebekdusha. Yeah? To that, the achroinim come and say, you know what, don't rely on that. Don't rely on the fact that anyway you're being mafsik for tachnunim, so you can be mafsik for dvarim shebekdusha. It's better to say an additional Yul Ratzon. Now the danger of that additional Yul Ratzon is that, let's say, on Erev Yom Kippur or Yom Kippur, when you're saying Vidoy, and Vidoy is supposed to be part of Shemone Esrei, you've, for all intents and purposes, cut it off from Shemone Esrei by adding that Yul Ratzon. So there's a tzad that, let's say, you need to add to Shemone Esrei important things. There's a tzad not to say that first Yul Ratzon. But that first Yul Ratzon is later Achroinim. The Mishabura doesn't say who. Look, it's in Sivkat and Gimel. Toiv, Loimar, Yul Ratzon, Kodim Tachnum, Ve'achreihem. Right? It's a Toiv. Who is it? Achroinim. Who are the Achroinim? You want me to guess what century that started in? The 18th century. But that's a guess. I don't know. I don't know the year that was recommended. Meaning it's in response to the Ramah. The Ramah created a heter that if any way you say Elokai Nitzar, then you could say you could answer Dvarim Shebekdusha. So Achroinim say, you know what, okay, it's a good Chiddush, but we're not sold on the Chiddush, just say another Yul Ratzon.
The big clause now, Elokai Nitzar, now part of our Shemone Esrei. It's no longer like Yish Noyagin, it's part of Shemone Esrei, so therefore we have to, you have to say the first Yul Ratzon now. The
what?
I mean, I would assume the reason for the first Yul Ratzon is because Elokai Nitzar is now part of our Shemone Esrei. Not Noyagin Lahapsik Elokai Nitzar. The reason to say the first Yul Ratzon is because again, the Ramah said, what's the reason to say Yul Ratzon? Not to rely on this idea that, well, you're being mafsik anyway for tachnunim. You're saying maybe because the tachnunim become keva, and therefore, just because you're mafsik for them, you can't be mafsik for dvarim shekadusha? Yeah, didn't we say something?
That was Mishnah Berura Siv Katan Aleph, meaning why does the Mechaber in the end say it only has a din of Be'emtza Kriya Shema, and in the beginning he says you could answer anything? The answer is because once, the svara that you're saying, that since we say Elokai Netzar regularly, therefore you're still tied down. Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. That in other words, the advantage of saying Yul Ratzain is not just because we don't want to rely on the Ramaz Chidosh. Well, if you're mafsik for Tachnunim, you can be mafsik on Shab Kedusha. It's because the Tachnunim have become Keva. So since they become Keva, you're more tied down. You're more tied down. So therefore, you say the Yul Ratzain to give you some breathing room to be cut off. Yeah? Yeah, I agree. In other words, he doesn't say, the Mishnah Berura doesn't say why it's Tov Loimar Yul Ratzain. Presumably it's because it makes it easier to interrupt. What's the challenge of interrupting? Maybe because Elokai Netzar has become Keva. Okay. Siv Katan Vav, Mekatzer V'Oila, Dahainu Shemavsik.
Someone is davening B'Yachidus.
Yeah.
Someone's davening, or already missed Kedusha, finishes Shemone Esrei after Kedusha. So he doesn't gain by saying the first Yul Ratzain.
I don't think he gains. It's there just to help you be able to answer things.
You don't need to, so don't bother.
I guess it depends. The Mishnah Berura doesn't say what the reason for the tov is. Let's see.
And if he accidentally doesn't say it...
Unless there's a reason that you say Yul Ratzain in order to say Tachnunim. Meaning, what right do you have to say Tachnunim before you take 3 steps back? You're still middle Shemone Esrei. How can you just say Tachnunim?
You can say the middle Shema Kalinu, technically.
Yeah, technically. But who says you could say them now? You're still middle of Shemone Esrei. In other words, what's...
The Mishnah Berura said you could say it now. He said it before. The Mishnah Berura says you can say the Tachnunim after.
That's if you said Yul Ratzain. But maybe in order to say Tachnunim...
The Ramah says, Makam Shinag and Leimer Tachnunim Kaidim Yul Ratzain. There's obviously such a minhag.
Yeah, but to that, the Mishnah Berura responds, it's not a great minhag. It's better to say Yul Ratzain first. In other words, what's the reason for the Yul Ratzain? Is it to allow Tachnunim? And then the nafkamina would be like Rabbi Yeager said. In other words, if you're davening B'Yechidas, why do we say the first Yul Ratzain? Is it only to answer Dvarim Shebekdusha? Or is it to allow Tachnunim before you take 3 steps back? I don't know. Mishnah Berura doesn't say the reason. The Mishnah Berura doesn't say the svara. Is it because it's not pashut you could say Tachnunim, or is it because it's in order to allow you to be mafsik for Dvarim Shebekdusha? Mishnah Berura Sivkat and Vav Mekatzer V'Oila Hainu Dahainu Shemavsik Be'emtza HaTachnunim Upaisei Ala Achrav. That is, you interrupt in the middle of the Tachnunim and you take 3 steps back. You don't have to say Tachnunim every single Shemone Esrei. V'mein lo yishus of soya. If you don't have time to take 3 steps back, v'loy amar Yul Ratzain kadem al Netzar, and you didn't say Yul Ratzain before, tov she'amar ata Yul Ratzain kadem sheyana imam. It's good to say Yul Ratzain before you answer with them. We'll hold it over here. Yeah? Okay, Rabbi say, have a great day. Kol tov. So tomorrow we have to try to finish Siman Kuf Chaf Beis and finish this page on Kuf Chaf Gimel. Hatzalach everyone. Kol tov.
If you're in the middle, if one's in the middle of Elokai Neshama,
yeah.
Oh. And you let it stop and say Yul Ratzain to answer, and he realized like he was just coming up and he didn't realize. You let it stop in the middle of Elokai Neshama. Elokai Neshama.
Yeah, l'chayra. Yeah.
That's what they say by Yom Kippur.
Yeah, that was.
They're in the middle of a vidui and they get to Kedusha, so say Yul Ratzain and answer.
Right, or that's all you say. Say the first Yul Ratzain. You mean
you're not saying it?
What?
You wouldn't say it.
What?
On Yom Kippur you wouldn't say it usually. You want your vidui to be a part of Shemone Esrei. if you already, if they're saying Kedusha, then you say it's against Kedusha. I think that's what they say, if I remember correctly.
The Mishnah Berura Lamaisa says even on Yom Kippur you do say the first Yilu Ratzon. That's his conclusion.
You do?
Yeah, he says in Siman Tafrei Zayin Sivkon Tezvav. But Reb Chatzkel, even though he usually said the first Yilu Ratzon, he said for Yom Kippur he was machmer like the Gra. But the Matei Ephraim says, on every Yom Kippur you didn't, and the shots got to Kedusha, then you should.
Oh, good. He has a shalavaya on your Rosh Chodesh. If you forgot Yala B'Yavai, then the Chazan gets to Kedusha.
Yeah.